Right, welcome back to another PT podcast. I've not done this since 2023. This technically I think should be season three, but I'm working with a business coach and he has had a good point and it's something I wanted to bring back for a while. So we'll give Jack a huge shout out for bringing this back. But I want to build out a longer bit of content, a longer format to be able to explain a lot of my points across to you guys and help you guys understand the science behind how I coach. Because sometimes when I have people coming from classes who are sort of inexperienced within training, they don't fully understand my methodologies, and I'm very evidence based. I'm very evidence based. I'm a little bit of a fitness geek. I like sitting down, going over fitness research, finding out what the latest research is, because essentially that's how I'm going to get my clients the best results. That's how I help get you guys the best results. So yeah, we're going to start this podcast again, and this episode is going to be really beneficial for everyone who wants to improve their Hyrox or wants to get into Hyrox, because we're going to be talking all about heart rate zones and why 97% of people are training wrong when it comes down to the heart rate zones. Now, 97% of all stats are made up like that one, but a large majority of people I speak to are training wrong when it comes down to their heart rate zone. They're not training in the right zones. They're following classes, they're following, Instagram workouts where it's always go. And with Hyrox, it's a little bit unique. So this might sound backwards. To go faster, your training needs to be slower. To go faster, to have a better engine that is built through low heart rate zones. And we're going to go over all of this right now. But one thing I do notice, it's especially with a lot of gyms, they train people getting ready for Hyrox in a very similar way as a lot of them would train for CrossFit. Now, CrossFit and Hyrox, yes, they're both sort of hybrid. They both, on paper look like they overlap for the inexperienced people who don't fully understand the training methodologies behind both of them, but they're actually vastly different. A CrossFit workout, some of them can literally go for 30 seconds. A Hyrox workout, we can be looking, if you're elite, 55 minutes. If you're a beginner, 2 hours. So you cannot be training the same methodologies as you would for a 2 hour workout compared to a 30-second workout. I've never done a CrossFit workout that has lasted longer than Hyrox. I've never done a CrossFit workout that hits the aerobic zone, the zone three, zone fours in the same way that CrossFit does. Apart from potentially Murph could be the only real overlapping sort of workouts between the two. If you don't know what Murph is, 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, 1 mile run. But even that, last time I did that, well, the first time I did that, I did 66 minutes. And that's new into CrossFit, very new into all of the movement standards and that sort of stuff. Where, you have some elite people doing Murph in about 40 minutes. So even like the longer CrossFit workouts aren't still getting the same sort of length of a workout and energy demands as a Hyrox workout. Hyroxes are better off sort of, in a way, looking at people who do like the half marathons and stuff as that sort of, standard for their training rather than CrossFit. But yeah, this is basically why I'm here, why I want to explain to you guys why I recommend Zone 2 so much. Because look, Zone 2, it's boring. It's not sexy. It's literally 20 to 30 minutes just going through and doing something that's boring. And now, look, so with these podcasts, with these sort of educational format videos that I do them relatively unscripted. Okay. So, and I do it very sort of conversational because ultimately, this is me just coming on, talking to you guys about my knowledge. And look, that's an old PT podcast, and this will be uploaded onto Spotify. But right, let's go over here. Let's go into my Instagram because I want to show you something. And look, this is not just me, telling you guys this is the way you should do it and that sort of stuff. This is elite level people saying this as well. And we're going to start off with Hunter here.
around Europe this summer teaching these seminars is that almost none of the athletes were doing zone 2 work. They're all taking 5 to 10 Hyrox classes a week. They're absolutely crushing themselves. They're always in what's called this gray zone where they're always sweating more and burning more calories, but they're never getting more efficient or better at their process. They're just doing more work. So it's boring, but winning is not boring. Those jerseys behind me are not fucking boring. If you guys really want to learn and get better, it starts there. And if you guys can't swallow that pill, you'll never be one of the best. You'll never achieve your goals at the high level. One thing
And then I also want to show you something from Jade as well, where she goes,
I can hear people going now, it's boring, but something that you cannot neglect. Why? 3 reasons. Number 1, zone 2 training is going to improve your overall capacity of your cardio system. So essentially, the blood flow is going to be so much better supplied to the muscles with one pump. There's going to be so much more volume. So you're going to have a lower heart rate overall. Okay. Number 2 is your development of mitochondria. These are the powerhouse behind your aerobic system. And then number 3 is your body's going to get so much better at utilizing different energy systems. So fat that can be used as energy as well as glycogen. And that's going to improve overall in your performance in terms of what your body decides to use when it decides to use it. It's going to be so much more efficient. Okay, so let's talk about zone 2 training and the importance of it. I can hear people going now, it's boring.
hang on, let me sorry, mute that again. Those are 2 absolute goats within Hyrox who are talking about the benefits of zone 2, and it is something that cannot be ignored because that is what makes the elite the elite. That is what's going to help you guys hit not just a time that you're happy with, but a time that you're like, wow, I did that. Wow, what a time. Because when you build up that aerobic base, you, as Jade said, your body's going to be so much more efficient at passing oxygen around your body. Now, your body is good at passing oxygen around the body. Beautiful thing about that, the cells are going to get more energy, which means you're going to be able to perform for longer within Hyrox. Because again, if we go, let's go back onto socials quickly, right? One trend I'm seeing a lot right now, and I'm seeing this a hell of a lot across all social medias. And the thing that breaks me about this trend, right? You have coaches out there. There are coaches who are jumping onto this trend, who are misleading their audience, trying to make them look like they've worked really, 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 really hard in Hyrox, when there's stuff behind it that's just not physically possible. And that is this right here. So let's go quickly jump back into share screen, Chrome, bam, share. This one.
Your Apple Watch is probably lying to you. You cannot hold zone 5 for as long as a lot of these people say. This is Stephen. He's been the physio for some of the top footballers back in the UK, and he's going to explain to you for why your Apple Watch is wrong.
So your Apple Watch does an estimation of your heart rate zones, and this is based on the multiple factors, but it's not super accurate. So some of the key methods that we can use. Number 1 is an at-home test. You run for 30 minutes, and the last 20 minutes is a full-out effort, and we can use that to estimate some of your key training zones. The other thing is to get some testing done. You can get some VO2 max testing or lactate threshold testing to become really specific with what your key running zones are.
If you comment what the word threshold, we can tell you a test you can do in your gym.
Now, let me mute myself again there. Now, that's one of the most important things that we do need to bear in mind, and it's wild. He was a physio for Premier League football clubs in the UK. He's now my physio. Wild. He used to live in the UK. He's now moved back to Australia. If you're in Brisbane, go onto my Instagram and drop him a follow because he's a cracking physio. But that's by the by. One thing that we need to realize when we talk about heart rate zones, yes, I wear a Whoop, and there's loads of different, ones out there. You've got Garmin, Apple Watch, all that sort of fun stuff. Heart rate zones is more a method of your body telling you, it's more a method of your heart telling you how hard you're working, which will then tell your body what sort of energy system that should be used. So when you're up in that zone 5, it's in all honesty, it's a horrible place to be. I do elements of that sort of training with me and my clients because you need to sort of get used to that feeling of lactic acid and start building up a little bit of resistance against that burn. But imagine this, right? Go onto a echo bike. If your gym's got an echo bike, this would be a fantastic example. And sprint. Absolutely go flat out as fast as you can for as long as possible. You will be lucky, genuinely, not to lose pace after 30 seconds because you're going to feel your lungs go on fire. You're going to feel that heart literally bouncing out of your chest. You're going to feel the lactic acid just burning away in your legs. That is what zone 5 feels like. That is the level of intensity for zone 5. That is going to be impossible to hold that feeling for an hour. If you're elite, you'll be able to hold that feeling for maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes if you're an elite level athlete. Now, a lot of these people out here making this trend, they're not elite level athletes. They're good athletes, but they're not elite level. So they're not going to be able to outperform within that zone compared to people who've been doing this for years. And that's why fundamentally we need to be so aware about our heart rate zones and sort of what our body is using for energy. Because that zone 2, exactly what Jade was saying, it's not necessarily about, 138 beats per minute. What it's more about is how your body is processing oxygen and passing it around the body. Now, with zone 2, theoretically, you can hold that sort of intensity forever. The only thing that's going to stop you holding zone 2 is going to be muscular endurance. But from an energy system, from your heart system, from sort of, the process of using oxygen for energy, that will be that will be sustained forever. And that is what we need to get good for Hyrox, is being able to sustain that level of intensity for a while whilst going up into zone 3 and zone 4 as well. Yes, Hyrox, sometimes you are going to be hitting zone 5s, when we put the lunges, when we've got the burpees, when we've got the sleds, but you're not going to be hitting that for a while. And then having a really strong aerobic base, when you get up to those high level of intensities, and then you go back out on that run, the stronger the aerobic base that you have, the better your body's going to be able to recover. So aerobic will help you recover a whole load when it comes down to your training. Now, let's quickly. I'm going to show you someone else. Again, this guy's worth a follow. Guy called Charlie. He is a elite 15 athlete. Been in the game for a long while as well, and he's actually the youngest elite 15 athlete, and he's off to worlds. He does a lot of Hyrox. He's really fucking fast. As you can see, Cardiff there, he hit a 55-minute in pro. But he does a lot about showing. Bam, bam, bam. Hang on, let's go back a while. About his training and how he trains and what basically gets him to the level that he is at. Because, so firstly, and this is something, number one, that is worth bearing in mind. He's doing 20 hours a week of training. 20 hours he's dedicating to becoming elite level within Hyrox. And yes, we've got a VO2 run, so intense. VO2 run, echo, that's intense, lower body strength. 1.5 hour on the bike, that's going to be zone 2, zone 1. Then he's got another 1.5 hours on the bike in Thursday. Then a 2 hour on the bike. And then threshold, and then double work at a lactic acid one. But he's doing a lot of zone 2. And then if we go back, 26 hours worth of training. Stairmasters on Thursday, 2 hours there. Hyrox work threshold to high intensity. But on Tuesday, 2 hours easy on the stairs, 2 hours easy on the bike. Do you see what I mean? He's doing a lot of 2 hours easy. 2 hours zone 1 on the bike, 1 hour zone 1 on the stairs. He is hitting a hell of a lot of volume, but a lot of his work physiologically is relatively easy-ish. Zone 1 is easy. Zone 1 it's easy. 1 point it's easy on the stairs. But that's what's going to make him so much better at Hyrox, because he's going to have such a strong aerobic system. And it's no different. Hunter as well, elite 15 athlete, was telling you how important that zone 2 is as well. Jade, elite 15 athlete, is telling you how important that zone 2 is. Hyrox should not be leaving you every single workout as an absolute sweaty Betty. There's elite level endurance athletes who will do 80% of their training at zone 2. 80%, whole 80%, which is a huge number, but that's sort of the numbers people need to be getting up to if you want to build up that aerobic base. So just going in and doing classes, just going in and beasting yourself and going in and following random workouts from TikTok or Instagram, that's not going to be yielding you the best results when it comes down to your own Hyrox. So you need to make sure that you have a good structure behind your training. But sorry, I've got a little bit distracted by Charlie. what I wanted to show you guys is like heart rate zones and energy systems. So this will show you in a little bit of a better way what I mean. Let me go back into screen share. Share, desktop one. So here we go. Literally, Google's free. Feel free to Google it this yourself as well. So the more intensity that we're using, we started using ATP, so we're really building out that fast explosive power. That will also build out a lot of lactic acid as a byproduct from this zone, which is why your muscles burn when you're hitting that high intensity. And you can see sort of the time over seconds coming out to about 180 seconds, which is a long time within that anaerobic zone 5 zone. It's near enough emptied. And that aerobic zone there, the yellow, is still going up gradually. And that's where it's really important that we understand how these different zones work because yes, okay, come in Hyrox, we can, the sled push is going to be a brilliant example. The sled push is going to require a bit of ATP, that higher intensity. That's going to spike the heart rate because it's a hard station. It requires power. But then we want to make sure we have that strong aerobic base. So when we leave that aerobic base is flushing out the lactic and it's making you recover quicker. Technically, the aerobic base doesn't flush out the lactic, but by having a strong aerobic base, there's science that shows if you jog, it will flush out lactic acid out of your legs quicker than if you walk. But having that strong aerobic zone will mean that you're going to be so much more likely to be able to leave the sleds and jog straight away rather than walk in, hands on your heads, feeling that burn and just not being in a fun place. And look, there's plentiful of graphs like this as well. And I really want to highlight, again, this is not me here trying to nitpick on people saying, you're not holding that zone 5, but that zone 5, is 90 to 100% of effort. You're telling me people can hold 100% effort, 90% effort for upwards of 1 hour. Try, as I said, go on the Echo Bike, do 1 hour at the same pace you can do for the first 20 seconds. Physiologically impossible. That's never going to happen. The Echo Bike, by the way, is one of the best ways to actually see what I would say a true Zone 5 actually feels. But yeah, so when it comes down to your training, you want. This is not going to be the perfect science. Everyone's very slightly different, but if you're doing 4 hours of training a week, you probably want 1.5 hours of zone 2. And then if we do 5 hours, maybe say 2 hours zone 2. And then as the amount of hours go up, I'd say in terms of maximum output, with strength training, with, hard Hyrox sessions, you probably want to do 3, maybe 4 hours maximum at like a high intensity. If you do that, if you do 4 good, weight Hyrox sessions a week, threshold tempo running, if you do 4 of them a week, and then do the rest of all your time you have available in zone 2, you're going to be in a phenomenal place for that Hyrox. Sometimes where people go wrong, they think, okay, if I do more intensity, I'm going to get better results. But by doing more intensity, we're not getting that aerobic adaptations. Your body's not adapting within that aerobic capacity, which is what we need for Hyrox. So if you guys have any questions about this, please feel free to drop me a DM. I am going to be uploading this onto my 2.0 portal. If you do want more details about the 2.0 portal, basically I'll get you stronger and I'll get you fitter and I will get you healthier. If you drop me a message, I will get it sent across to you. But until then, have a phenomenal day and see you guys later. Bye.